I started at Pearl PD in 1974 and spent 23 years, well 19 years actually, with the Pearl Police Department. Made it all the way up to operations captain. And I left for a while and went to Flowood as police chief. Came back, ran for mayor, and was elected mayor and served as mayor for 12 years. It was where I grew up, and we had so much fun here. My childhood, I can remember it being just so happy and quiet little town. It was laid back, wasn't much going on. You know, you rode bicycles to school, and you even rode your bicycles to Little League baseball practice, and hung out in the summer times up around the what is now the city park by Lower Elementary up there, and we'd hang out there and play ping pong, different horseshoes, things like that, and then you go to baseball practice, and then you go home. And it was just a fun time all the way through high school. It really left an impression and really molded my life in a lot of ways growing up here. I graduated from Pearl High School in '71. And I believe it was going on then. I know the city finally got its charter in '73, I believe. Yeah, so yeah, I was in high school when that was taking place. You know, and I was so much into what I had going on, and you know, and going to school and doing whatever we did back then. And I heard about that, but never paid really much attention to it. You know, we thought we were just as good as anybody else's police department back at that time, even though we weren't very big. But you know, I was around enough where the police department grew as the town grew, and the city was rather large. I believe the incorporation was like 14,000 population at the time, and so it wasn't really a small place, but. It was a lot of fun coming back and getting on the police department. We was at the trailers up the road up here, and we didn't have very many patrol cars, but we came in on the midnight shift one afternoon, and we had 2 patrol cars. One of them was broke down, so 3 of us had to ride in one patrol car. And as we got the calls for service, we would just drive it around and drop one out and leave and go to the next one, come back when we could and pick up the guy that we had dropped out. So it's come a very long way from that. And, you know, it was old school policing back then. And we, a lot of times we'd take kids home, you know, to their parents, to mama and daddy, instead of taking them into the court system, because a lot of us felt back then that mom and dad could do a better job than the courts could. And that's kind of the way our attitude was back then. And I grew up in that environment too, where I was scared of my dad, you know, and I knew what he was going to do. I'd rather went to court. But that's kind of the way that it was back then, and I miss that, you know, that kind of policing, if you will, or especially when it comes to the kids, you know, where you catch them messing up, they just doing what kids do. And of course, some of them don't have the home life that we did, you know. There were more people in town. The school got larger. There was more people in town. Businesses started coming in. Walmart was the first big one I remember, and then Miss Kelly's was on the heels of that. And it was a lot of privately owned mom and pop shops were coming around. The shopping centers were all full of businesses, and it was just a bustling little town. You know, back then when I ran, I guess my reasons were a lot different than they are now. I don't know that I really had a concrete reason that I did that, but looking back at that time now, I think that the thought has come to me that I think I really did it because I wanted to give back a little bit to Pearl, what Pearl had given to me. And I think, thinking back and reflecting back on that, that's probably why I ran for office. Had a wonderful board, really did. I was lucky in that respect. And we accomplished a lot of things. We had obviously the growth of the Bass Pro and the stadium project that came about during our administration. But also we started little things like putting in infrastructure, replacing old water lines and sewer lines. That was something we felt like we needed to do. And I think it's been continued on since. And to be honest with you, I think every mayor that Pearl's had contributed in some way to the growth of Pearl, starting with Harris in the beginnings and, and on down the line. Each of us had our own little niche in what we like to get accomplished. And some of us were, at least from the business aspect, I think during my term, because of what the previous mayors had done, we was in a better situation to attract business here. And that was a big key in us getting the stadium project here in the Bass Pro because of the atmosphere that was here then. And we had a lot of help, and we had some good people, and Pearl's always had good people. And we worked together. And that is the biggest blessing I think that we had under my administration, was the fact that we worked so well together. School system, the city, the aldermen, right on down the line. That was a low-lying area, and a few houses and a few families that lived on that parcel of land down there. But the fact that it's there, when I drive by and see that, first off, I think it's unbelievable that it ever happened. During the whole process of doing that project, there was 1,000 ways that thing could have fell through, and it never happened. It was on matchsticks a lot of time. But for whatever reason, it just kept progressing along until finally we convinced the Braves that they needed to come. And the Bass Pro Shop along about the same time decided they would come here. So I understand we were competing with everybody in the state over the Bass Pro. It was a lot of people shocked outside of Pearl that happened. And the county even came along with us. So, it was enjoyable working with everybody, and that's the kind of things it takes to get those kind of things done. Like I told you earlier, that was a $78 million project, so that was huge for Pearl. I knew it was bigger than us. It was certainly bigger than me and the people we were dealing with. And, it was uncommon for us to be considered for something like that all the way from Missouri to Georgia, where Bass Pro in Missouri and, of course, the Braves in Atlanta, and all the people that came with that. And, out of that whole project, though, the most prideful I was for Pearl was the day that you could say that the Atlanta Braves played in Pearl, Mississippi, and the Major League Club. And they came here for an exhibition with our AA team. And to me, that was astonishing. Yeah. That was tough. Well, I was at home that morning and getting ready to come to City Hall, and I think it was one of the school board members stopped by and told me there was something going on at the high school, and it was bad. And of course, we didn't know exactly at the time what it was. So anyway, I went up, and Bill Slade was the police chief here. And we went up there, and it was hectic. It was people and kids running everywhere. And I guess the long and short of it is this. Of all the things that happened that day, and I was so proud of our police department and the way that was handled, and all the school personnel then. Looking back on it, I think we handled that as well as it could be handled at the time, and for the resources we had here and what we had to play with here. But it was a tragic time, and it affected a lot of lives. My son was at the high school that day. And of course, you had that personal concern for your own child, but you know, you had these hundreds of other kids too that were in harm's way, and I knew almost all of them, and it was heartbreaking. As the mayor, I had the experience of being in law enforcement all them years. So as far as being able to handle that crime scene there and things like that, it was something I knew that we had to make parents and kids as comfortable as possible. So we had to go back to school at some point, and we all knew that. So we put police officers around the clock at the school, night and day, for several days afterwards. And we can, you know, just let people know that it was safe to come back to school. I don't think the school was making people mandatory that they come back in those first few days after that. But, you know, I let people know my kids were going to go to school that first day. You know, I was going to put my kids back in, that we was not going to run from that. We were going to stand up to that. And that's what we did. And there was a lot of rumors. It was tough dealing with rumors. Rumors caused a lot of problems in the days after, you know. There was all kinds of things being said about the school when it was going back, about a group coming in and another threats and bombs and this. It just was all over the map. And we spent a lot of time putting out fires, so to speak, you know, and had to convince people. And you can't blame them. We just had to keep trying to keep it at a level where they could understand and what the facts were, and not to listen to the rumors. But it's hard to tell people that in that situation. But, you know, they saw what we were doing as a PD in a city, and they were able to get back, and in time, everybody dealt with it. Oh, it was, you know, once you got past all the outside people coming in, you know, with the national media and even the local medias and people from outside of Pearl coming in, you know, trying to help. And we appreciated that. But the kids healed much better, in my opinion, than us adults did. You know, you always hear kids are so resilient. Well, I saw that firsthand, and they are. And but you know, I was proud of the way the city ended up responding and the support that the school picked up. It seemed like there was more support for the school after that than it was before, as far as everybody coming together and appreciating teachers and the school staff and things like that, because they went through some very hard times with that. And through the course of time, you know, our churches have always stepped up. In the hurricanes, especially Katrina, you know, we wouldn't have made it through that. And at the shelter we had set up over here, thing without the churches bringing food and doing that. But the churches were always stepping up, no matter what. And they offered a lot of support to the kids at the school back during that shooting, you know. And so it was, faith got us through that. That it was a work in progress, and we made it easy for them. And you know, keep the schools going. You know, the schools started in the great schools we have here, and just keep the city going.